The Cancun Trap. Rhetoric versus reality. Bang! Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's fist hit the committee table with enough force to send papers scattering like startled birds. At 35, the congresswoman from New York's 14th district still commanded the room, fueled by the fury of certainty, believing she was the sole standard-bearer for justice. It was a performance calibrated for the algorithm, designed not for the committee but for the C-SPAN cameras and the millions of smartphones watching. The entire spectacle was a masterclass in modern political theatrics, where the appearance of outrage is often more valuable than the substance of policy. "You're a climate denier who abandoned Texas to freeze." The words cracked through the House Financial Services Committee hearing room like a whip. This was the core narrative, the callous conservative versus the compassionate progressive, framed in the simplest, most emotionally resonant terms. In the gallery, young progressives in "Tax the Rich" t-shirts erupted, their coordinated chants of "shame, shame, shame," providing the thunderous soundtrack to her political theater. Camera flashes, the currency of modern politics, lit up the room, capturing what AOC was utterly convinced would be her next viral moment, the young revolutionary taking down the old conservative guard. Across the table, Senator Ted Cruz of Texas sat in stark contrast. He calmly adjusted his wire-rimmed glasses, a slight, almost invisible smile playing at the corners of his mouth. It was the expression of a poker player holding 4 aces while his opponent recklessly commits their entire stack to a pair of 2s. This wasn't merely a political opponent. This was a man who understood the difference between a skirmish and a war. And he had come prepared for total victory. He took his time cleaning his glasses with a handkerchief, utterly unhurried, a masterpiece of deliberate, dismissive calm, as the papers from AOC's theatrical gesture fluttered down around him like useless confetti. The atmosphere was thick and heavy. Every seat in the gallery was packed with the faithful. Behind Ocasio-Cortez stood the squad, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, Ayanna Pressley, nodding in lockstep, their presence a visible political fortification. Security officers positioned themselves at the exits. Sensing this was more than just typical political shouting, it felt like a potential physical flashpoint. Republicans watched with knowing, anticipatory smiles, but it was the Democrats who were the most telling. They looked visibly uncomfortable, sliding their chairs imperceptibly away from AOC, suddenly finding their phones intensely fascinating, as if trying to physically detach themselves from the coming explosion. Ocasio-Cortez, unable to contain her energy, grabbed another stack of papers, irrelevant props for her performance, and hurled them toward Cruz. They fell harmlessly, emphasizing the theatrical nature of her rage over any factual content. "You want to lecture me about serving the people?" While Texans froze. "You were sipping margaritas in Cancun." Her chief of staff, sensing she was overheating, tried desperately to intervene, signaling her to pull back. She dismissed him with a shake of her head. This was her moment of righteous vindication. She was speaking the truth to power. And nothing could stop her. "You represent everything wrong with this system. Rich politicians who serve themselves while working families suffer." Cruz continued writing, his dismissal infuriating her more than any shouted defense could have. The lack of engagement amplified her sense of righteousness. His aide passed him a plain, manila folder, unremarkable in its appearance. Its very simplicity made it an object of potent fear. Cruz set it down, finished his note, and set down his pen with a soft click. "You flew to Mexico while your state suffered. You abandoned them. You're a coward who only serves the rich." Ocasio-Cortez delivered the monologue's intended final blow, breathing hard, face flushed with the performance. The room fell silent except for the fading, ragged chants. The victory, in her mind, was secured. She was completely, utterly unaware that she had just walked headlong into a carefully constructed trap. The contrast between her furious activism and Cruz's serene preparation was about to become the single most defining moment of her career. The chanting died away. Cruz finished his final note, removed his glasses, and cleaned them again with deliberate, time-stretching slowness. Finally, he looked up. His voice, Texas calm and conversational, broke the silence. "Congresswoman, are you quite finished?" The question was a devastatingly simple rhetorical maneuver. reframing her righteous fury as merely a child's tantrum that had to be patiently endured. Ocasio-Cortez opened her mouth to continue her assault. But Cruz held up one finger. Wait. He reached for the manila folder. The Republicans now leaned forward. The Democrats visibly shrank back. He pulled out an 8x10 glossy photograph. Professional quality. And held it up so the entire room, and every camera, could see. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in a flowing white gown at the Met Gala. "Tax the rich," blazed across the back in giant red letters. Her arms were raised, posing for the cameras, smiling at the most exclusive, hyper-capitalist party in America. The gallery's cheers died instantly. The silence that followed was so complete that the buzz of the fluorescent lights overhead became audible. Ocasio-Cortez froze mid-gesture, her confident smile cracking like ice in spring. Her hand desperately reached for the table. The world had just tilted on its axis. The perfect visual indictment had just crushed her perfect rhetorical performance. "Before we discuss my travel arrangements," Cruz said quietly, "perhaps we should discuss yours. Specifically, your attendance at the most expensive party in America as a guest of billionaires." He let the accusation breathe. The cameras captured the moment her face went from flushed with righteous anger to pale. Dawning horror. The power had drained from her voice like water from a cracked cup. This is about your corruption. Not mine. This is a distraction from the real issues." "Is it?" Cruz pulled out another document. Official letterhead. Congressional seal. "This is from the House Ethics Committee. Released just last month." The color drained from her face entirely now. Here it was, in Cruz's hands, on national television. "You want to talk about serving the rich? Let's talk about who paid for your dress that night. Who paid for your professional styling? Who paid for the ticket for your boyfriend to attend?" She stammered. I borrowed that dress. I always intended to pay." Cruz finished the sentence with surgical precision. "Eventually. After you were caught. Her designer jacket, her subtle jewelry, her professional makeup, every choice she'd made that day now screamed the very hypocrisy she had come to condemn." Cruz arranged more folders on his table. Many folders. A whole stack of them. "Congresswoman," he said, his tone almost gentle, "you attacked me for one trip to Cancun with my family. Fair enough. But I'm not here to defend myself. I'm here to present 4 years of your ethics violations. Your family's enrichment. Your champagne socialist lifestyle funded by the very people you claim to fight." The projection screen behind Cruz lit up. Left. Tax the rich dress. Right. Official House Ethics Committee report. Violations found. The ace had been revealed. The socialist revolutionary who'd come to execute was now the political victim, facing her own documented record. The gala's gifts. Ethics violations confirmed. Gasps rippled through the committee room like stones thrown in still water. The visual juxtaposition on the projection screen, the glittering, "Tax the Rich" gown opposite the official House Ethics Committee report. Violations found, was an instant, devastating narrative kill shot. In the gallery, progressive supporters grabbed each other's arms, the confusion spreading like a political contagion. This was not the script they had rehearsed. This was not the simple right-wing conspiracy they were prepared to chant down. Cruz, with the easy, measured confidence of a professor about to deliver an irrefutable lecture, moved to the screen, laser pointer in hand. The red dot danced on the official finding like a forensic accusation. "Last month," he began, his voice maintaining its conversational, almost friendly tone, which only amplified the cruelty of the facts. "The House Ethics Committee, and I stress this, Congresswoman, a bipartisan body of 5 Democrats and 5 Republicans, completed their investigation into Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez's attendance at the Met Gala. This detail was crucial. It inoculated the finding against the inevitable charge of political bias. The source of the destruction was internal." Click. The photo of AOC in the flowing gown enlarged. Her perfect smile and the blazing message captured forever. This is one of the most exclusive events in America. The kind of party where tickets cost what most working families earn in an entire year. This is the pinnacle of the wealth inequality you claim to fight. Ocasio-Cortez surged to her feet, chair scraping loudly. "Turn that off. This is nothing but a manufactured smear." The committee chairman's gavel came down like a gunshot. "Congresswoman, the senator has the floor. You'll have your opportunity to respond." She remained standing, gripping the table. Her designer jacket, which had felt like a symbol of seriousness hours ago, now felt expensive and mocking under the harsh committee lights. Cruz didn't even glance at her. He kept speaking to the room, to the cameras, to history. "Let me walk you through what happened." He clicked to a timeline. Clean, simple, and utterly damning. September 2021. She attends the gala. She wears custom couture, professional hair and makeup, and loaned jewelry. She tells the world she is there to crash the party of the elite. Cruz paused, letting the dramatic irony build into an insurmountable wave. Except she wasn't crashing anything. She was invited, personally invited by Anna Wintour and the hosts. By the very people she was supposedly there to protest. The revolutionary was a special guest of the oligarchy. An act of performative activism sanctioned and paid for by the capital class. The timeline moved forward to 2022. People start asking reasonable questions. Who paid for all this? The congresswoman assured everyone, "I'll pay for everything. It's all handled." His voice dropped, forcing people to lean forward. Except she didn't pay. Not fully. Not honestly. 2023. The Office of Congressional Ethics, OCE, begins its investigation. They follow the money. Cruz turned to face Ocasio-Cortez directly. His gaze steady. "You accepted gifts you weren't entitled to accept. You took thousands of dollars in services and goods. And you only started paying, partially paying, after the investigation was launched. This was the legal core of the violation. The delayed payment was an admission of guilt. A desperate attempt at remediation only after being caught." Ocasio-Cortez, frantic, seized on the only defense left. "This is a distraction. Your manufacturing scandal to avoid discussing climate." July 2025. Cruz spoke over her, his voice cutting through her panic. "Last month, the Ethics Committee released their findings. Not allegations. Findings." He picked up the thick, official report. He read the official indictment with careful, crushing precision. Representative Ocasio-Cortez violated House rules by accepting impermissible gifts associated with her attendance at the Met Gala in 2021. He looked up over his glasses. Violated. Past tense. Confirmed. Official. "This is a bipartisan consensus that you broke the rules governing members of the U.S. House of Representatives." The gallery was panicking. Some progressive supporters were already heading for the exits. Their political faith shattered by the weight of documented evidence. The ideological shield of the right-wing conspiracy had utterly failed. "Let's get specific about the nature of the gift," Cruz said, moving to the custom gown. Designer Aurora James spent weeks creating it. The Ethics Committee consulted fashion experts and determined the dress, the accessories, the complete ensemble, was worth far more than what you paid. He produced receipts and spreadsheets. "The designer gave you what we call in the business a sweetheart deal, a significant discount. Far beyond what would be commercially reasonable. In Congress, Congresswoman, we call that an impermissible gift, a subsidy from the rich. You wore a dress saying, 'Tax the rich,' while being subsidized by them." The moral indictment was complete. The crusader against wealth had actively benefited from its most generous, undisclosed privileges. The fiscal deficit, late payments and the principal. Cruz now circled back, consolidating the financial hypocrisy of the Met Gala incident, emphasizing that the violation of principle was the true catastrophe, far outweighing the dollar amount. "Let's return to the cost," Cruz said, pulling up the detailed receipts and comparative spreadsheets. "The designer gave you a sweetheart deal. Hair and makeup services, which normally cost thousands for an event like that. You paid a fraction of the market rate. And only paid after the investigation began." The evidence mounted. Loaned jewelry, tens of thousands in value, never properly disclosed. A hotel stay at the exclusive Carlyle covered by a third party, never disclosed. Transportation, all subsidized. The entire event, intended as a statement against the elite, was revealed to be an exercise in elite access and luxury consumption, funded by undisclosed gifts. "And when did you finally decide to settle at least some of these bills?" Cruz asked, the question hanging like an indictment. "Only after the ethics investigation began. Only when caught." when the Office of Congressional Ethics started asking uncomfortable questions. He shook his head slowly, a gesture of profound political disappointment. You wore a dress saying, "Tax the rich," while actively accepting gifts and subsidies from the rich. You attacked wealth inequality while demonstrably benefiting from its most privileged loopholes. You preached sacrifice while accepting luxury. Cruz wrote the total figure owed on a notepad in large, clear digits, holding it up for the cameras. Nearly $3. $3,000 isn't much to you. You earn over $150 a year. You can afford it, but it's not about the money. Is it? It's about the principle. You demanded others pay their fair share while you were subsidized by the very people you targeted. The silence in the room was absolute. Ocasio-Cortez's hands were visibly trembling as she fumbled for her water glass, spilling water that spread across her papers, warping the documents, a visual metaphor for the destruction of her prepared arguments. Cruz closed that folder with a soft, final thud. But Congresswoman, he said, his voice almost a sad whisper, the Met Gala is just the opening act. He pulled out a new, thicker, heavier folder. Let's discuss your boyfriend again. Specifically, let's talk about the $6 your campaign funneled to him through a political action committee you controlled. The compartmentalization of her scandals, ethics separate from campaign finance, had collapsed. Cruz was connecting the dots of a lifestyle. The $6 question, the BNC funnel. The atmosphere shifted abruptly from ethics and privilege to campaign finance mechanics, the systematic alleged misuse of donor funds. Let's talk about pass-through payments. Cruz continued, his voice calm, methodical, but devastating in its implication. About using intermediaries to hide where money goes. About campaign funds used to enrich family members. He brought up a flowchart on the screen. Simple enough for a lay audience to grasp. Damning enough for the FEC to investigate. AOC campaign right-pointing arrow brand new Congress, BNC, PAC right-pointing arrow Riley Roberts. Your boyfriend was paid $6 by your campaign, Cruz stated flatly, while you were claiming to represent working families who live paycheck to paycheck. Money was going in a circle, from your donors, through a PAC run by your chief of staff, straight to your boyfriend's bank account. Ocasio-Cortez exploded from her chair, adrenaline flooding her voice. He did work. He's a legitimate marketing consultant. He provided real services. This is normal campaign expenditure. Cruz didn't flinch. He simply demanded the proof. Show us the work. Congresswoman, show us one advertisement he created, one social media strategy document, one marketing campaign, one email blast, anything. Any tangible evidence that he actually did anything except deposit checks. The silence stretched, becoming the most conclusive piece of evidence against her claim. You can't, Cruz concluded, because the work doesn't exist. Only the payments exist. $6 gone from your donor's pockets into your boyfriend's account for work that can't be demonstrated. Cruz then connected the final, essential point, the identity of the PAC's operator. Who runs brand new Congress PAC? Cruz asked, pulling up a new photo. Saikat Chakrabarti, her former chief of staff. Your former chief of staff. The man who ran your campaign. Co-founded this PAC, managed its finances, and approved the payments to your boyfriend. Cruz let the connection hang. The flow of money was entirely contained within her closest personal and professional circle, making the appearance of self-dealing undeniable. Corrupt or incompetent. The final dilemma and FEC finding. The inquiry now reached its ethical climax, forcing Ocasio-Cortez into a position of absolute political vulnerability. You're telling me you didn't know about this? Cruz asked. You're telling me your own chief of staff was writing checks, thousands of dollars, to your boyfriend. And you were completely, utterly unaware? He presented the ultimate political double bind, the corrupt or incompetent dilemma. If you did know, Cruz stated, that's corruption, intentional misuse of campaign funds. And if you didn't know, he continued, you're incompetent, running a campaign operation so poorly controlled that your staff could funnel thousands to your boyfriend without your knowledge. He tilted his head slightly. Which would you prefer, Congresswoman? Corrupt or incompetent? The political defense behind her had utterly dissolved. The squad members were now actively looking away. demonstrating a clear, public defection. They wanted no part of the fallout. Cruz produced the final, devastating official document, the Federal Election Commission, FEC, complaint. The FEC received a formal complaint about these payments. Cruz read, citing the official, careful legal language, the timing and amounts of these transactions, the use of affiliated entities as intermediaries, the vague and amorphous nature of services allegedly provided, collectively establish reason to believe these transactions may have violated campaign finance law. He looked up, translating the legal phrasing. That is the official, legal, carefully worded way of saying, this looks suspiciously like money laundering. Ocasio-Cortez made one final, desperate appeal. This is character assassination. You're trying to destroy a strong woman of color who dares to challenge. I'm reading from official government documents. Cruz responded with a maddening, immovable calm. I'm not creating anything. I'm just showing people what their own government found when they investigated. She sat down heavily. The fury was gone, replaced by the crushing weight of documented truth. The final collapse. Twitter activism versus congressional accountability. Cruz leaned back, the silence heavy and complete. The stacks of folders on his table were a monument to her political execution, each one representing an investigation, a violation, a finding. Congresswoman, Cruz began, his voice losing its mildness and gaining the solemnity of a judge delivering a final sentence. You entered this room today relying on rhetoric and manufactured outrage. You came here for a viral moment, armed with a pre-written monologue, to accuse me of corruption. He reviewed the record she had created, accepting impermissible gifts, manipulating her boyfriend's legal status on official documents, and funneling thousands of dollars in donor money through an affiliated PAC straight into her inner circle. This is the fundamental difference, Congresswoman, between Twitter activism and congressional accountability. Cruz declared, a tweet can be performative, angry, and viral. A congressional record must be factual, ethical, and defensible. And yours, as proven by bipartisan findings, is neither. The socialist revolutionary who walked in 4 hours ago was now completely isolated. Her hands trembled visibly. The progressive supporters in the gallery, seeing the overwhelming evidence confirmed by bipartisan bodies, were heading for the exits. The squad's visible refusal to offer support sealed the political judgment. You called me a coward, Cruz concluded, his tone quiet but absolute. But the courage to challenge power must be matched by the integrity to live your principles. Your record shows that when faced with a choice between your ideology and your personal enrichment, you consistently chose luxury and self-dealing. Cruz closed the final folder with a sharp, decisive sound. I'm finished with this line of inquiry. Mr. Chairman, he paused, looking directly at the Congresswoman, now staring blankly ahead. There are, however, 3 more folders detailing other campaign expenditures and tax contradictions, should the committee wish to continue this discussion. The trap had closed. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez had walked into the hearing intending to execute her political rival, only to discover she had actually handed him the weapon to execute her own political image and credibility.